call me a queer, and I hope you do, for I do differ from what's normal to you. You call me a queer, and I hope you do, because it's true. You call me queer, and I hope you do, because these words will never cease to spew from my mouth like pride in myself or my heart. I am a work of art, an original piece by the Mother Cosmos. You try to make me feel ashamed for who I am, but I won't cower in fear of shame. I won't change for you, and I won't remain the same as you. I am queer, and my body and my life are canvases for me to paint, pages for me to write, wars for me to fight. From every stretch mark and scar to my long hair and the paint on my nails, I shall only grow queer, I shall never conform. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, what we have are a list of questions that have been submitted at, anonymous questions that have been submitted at campus sites here at Cartersville and on the Floyd campus. And we'll just toss these questions out there for the panel. And just whoever feels moved to answer, can go ahead. The first question is, what is the difference between gender identity and sexual orientation?
Basically, sexual orientation is the sex that you are attracted to, or the gender that you are attracted to. Actually, there's the difference between being a homosexual or a bisexual and being a pansexual, where when you are a pansexual, you can be attracted to all genders and sexuality, or genders and sexes and sexualities. It doesn't matter. Whereas if you're a homosexual, you're attracted to one sex. Whereas gender identity is how you identify in your gender regardless of what kind of anatomy you have. I have obviously a male anatomy, but I identify as a woman, so my gender identity is woman.
That's really succinctly put. I think you could have passed Dr. Blankenship's final on that actual question at IDIS. But I think those of us who we wake up and we see ourselves in the mirror and we know that the body that we have matches the soul that we have, don't even have to ponder this question. But there are continuums that we've learned about in psychogender class where you have your gender role, your gender identity, and then your orientation. And you can have a continuum of all three of those. In other words, any mix in the pot will do, but that's how I would answer it.
Well, we're products of the Enlightenment, and the Enlightenment doesn't function without categories. That's how we know the world, is through categories. So, and that's all these are. They're just categories. Once you break out the categories, you're transgressing, not just gender, but you're transgressing the way we know the world. This causes people trouble. This causes people to take notice, and it can get you unwanted attention.
All right. The next question is, do LGBT students ever get quietly bullied instead of outright attacked?
Absolutely. I mean, like, even walking around today, no one says anything to me, but the look in their eyes when I pass them and I'm wearing my skirt, they're confused, maybe even offended. But it's definitely a kind of bullying, whether they mean it to or not. One, that they would look at me in the way that they do, but two, that they won't approach me and ask me in a polite manner, so we can have that conversation like we're having that conversation now. Silent bullying happens all the time. I mean, people in this state can get fired for their sexual orientation and their gender identity, so that's a form of bullying still. So yeah, there's all different kinds of silent bullying.
Can I say that I see quietly being bullied as also the jokes that people make, the comments that are made when they're in a room and they don't know that you may not identify with the same orientation that they do or the same gender that they do. And to them it's funny, and to you it may even be funny in a situation like that because you choose to bring attention to the fact that it's not funny at all, and it is a form of silent bullying. And it can be offensive, it can be hard, and it can be taken to heart, and it can scar for a long time.
Yeah, I think I agree that silent bullying is probably the more predominant bullying that a lot of people experience on a daily basis, just because, you know, as Jessica said, you can sort of feel people looking at you or talking about you, or it might be indirect. And I know that a lot of people say stuff like, that's so gay, or, well, when you say that, do you mean that that's so bad? Is that the connotation that you're bringing to that word? And it might seem like something simple and trite that everyone should just throw off, but in reality, it sort of does sting after 100 times, so for sure.
Yeah, I think that silent bullying is definitely more predominant, especially on campus. And it's a lot harder for us to say something about because you didn't outwardly say it to us. So we can't really come back and ask you why you think that or why you said it. We don't want to, I don't want to start a conflict or start something with somebody. And it's hard to start talking about.
All right. The next question kind of builds off of that. Have you ever been directly bullied, and have you ever been directly bullied on campus?
In middle school, I was directly bullied a lot, to the point where I have a quarter-mile to half-mile long driveway, and my neighbor who would get dropped off the bus after me would get on his four-wheeler and come up and confront me in the driveway and would tell me things like, if you wouldn't act like a queer, we wouldn't have a problem. And so that was a lot of direct bullying, and most of the direct bullying for me happened in middle school. And there aren't really any instances on campus where I could consider that I've gotten bullied directly. So, yeah.
I can say that I have not on campus been directly bullied.
I know my daughter was in 9th grade. I actually had to go pick her up from school. And as a parent, what I wanted to do was to go and find the person responsible and handle the situation myself. And it was very difficult to work with a school system who was less than sympathetic about the entire issue. I felt as though I wasn't just fighting the bully, I was fighting the power behind the bully, which was the administration of that particular school. And it was very quietly suggested to me that if she wasn't so obvious in who she was, that we wouldn't have these problems. And so from a parental point of view, I know that it's happened to my daughter.
I haven't been directly bullied at college, thankfully. I was bullied a lot in elementary school and middle school. Not as much by the students, but as much the teachers and the faculty that said things about holding hands and PDA that they didn't say to people who were male and female. It was a lot more of an issue if I was holding hands with my girlfriend than if I had a boyfriend and I was holding hands.
Building off of that, also when I was in middle school, all the other girls got to wear like ribbons or things in their hair, but if I did, it was counted as a hat and I wasn't allowed to wear it. So it's interesting to see how things work, I guess. But also I'd like to say that on this campus, speaking of professors or instructors, the professors on this campus have been fantastic with me personally, and I greatly appreciate that.
Alan, can I ask a question?
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
Amelia, you said you feel like you're fighting the administration. What say do they have in this? I mean, why did they defend this behavior?
Well, I think, as you put in the Enlightenment, categories began then, and when we fall into the hierarchical schemes that have been predestined for us as human beings, this is where you belong, this is who you should be. When you challenge, when society is challenged, when those order is challenged in some way or another, I think that it can be threatening to people. I also feel that there were religious beliefs that played into the particular person I was dealing with. So when you take the power structure of religion and then the power structure of society and you put them together against a 14-year-old girl, then that's where I felt like that came from. That, in other words, you transgressed those roles, you have stepped outside of the category that we have allowed you to be in this world, and since you have done that, then you kind of deserve the punishment that you get.
So sexual bullying is really nothing more than an attempt to keep order?
I would agree.
since that was sort of a philosophical question, let me give you another question that, as a philosophy professor, I really like. What does equality mean to you? What is equality?
I think equality, you know, I mean, yes, we're, you know, at this point, it's in the Supreme Court. You have Prop 8 that's coming up today, and the Defense of Marriage Act is coming up tomorrow. And while marriage is important, you know, I think equality comes from just being given the same opportunities in the same respect. You know, not necessarily being, you know, feel like you're a second-class citizen just because of some of the people that you love, or the way that you identify yourself. I don't think it's really, I think equality stems from that, is being able to do what you do the same way that you do it and not have penalty or be told that I can't.
Building on that, it's all about perspective. We are all different. A heterosexual cisgender male is different than me, even though they are normal in the eyes of society. So we are all different, and differences will get celebrated one way or the other. It's just that some differences are acceptably celebrated while others are neglected, ignored, pushed aside, denied, etc.
Well, I think equality is a word that gets thrown out easily and defined not so easily. What is equality? But in this context, because everything is significant according to its context, in this context, equality means that you will be able to marry the person that you love, and that your children won't have to worry whether or not that they'll get the benefits of their parents should one of them die, or that if you're in the hospital room and a medical end-of-life care decision needs to be made, that the person who has loved you and been by your side will be the person that makes that decision for you. That when your belongings are, I mean, that would be a legal definition of equality. The other side of the coin to me would be the more philosophical, and that is, I'm not defined by who I had sex with last night. I'm defined by who I am and my content of character. I think a very wise man said something about being defined not by your skin color, but by the quality of your character. The same goes for orientation and sexual preference.
Well, I think you guys should think of equality, or think of equality as part of this little package that we put together. We call it American freedom. And American freedom is a very organic thing. It's alive. It changes shape, it expands, and it contracts. We have, throughout our history, people banging at the door, wanting in, wanting a piece of this American freedom. Half the people in this room would not have been able to vote a century ago. Some people in this room would not have been able to vote 45 years ago. American freedom expands and contracts, expands and contracts. And you can see the groundwork being laid here for further expansion just by the fact that this is being discussed. This was not a topic of conversation 25 years ago, or maybe even 15 years ago. The fact that it's being discussed indicates that American freedom is on the verge of expanding again.
Is there any aspect of equality that you think directly applies to being a student?
As a student, on this campus, in these two buildings that we have, there's just different things. Like, there are no gender-neutral bathrooms, and so I have to pick and choose which bathroom I use, and that seems like an inequality. I believe that it should be that there are gender-neutral bathrooms, but everything is by gender. When teachers need an easy way to separate a class in half, they put boys on this side and girls on this side, and if you are a closeted or stealth transgender person, you have no idea which side to go on, let alone if you're genderqueer. And so it's difficult in that respect, and it's just hard.
Can I make one more comment about this? People seeking equality always do so by pointing out their differences. Where there's a civil rights movement in the 1960s, when there's gay lesbian movement, women's rights, We constantly seek equality in this country, equality of treatment or outcome, and we do so by pointing out our differences. I find that a contradiction, a bit of a contradiction.
Well, Dr. Blankenship, you and I have had this conversation before a little bit, and I will just say shortly that I believe that celebrating differences is what makes America and the world a good place to be. I think that being able to celebrate my differences by being on this panel today, and you celebrating your differences by being on this panel today, is a great thing. So I think celebrating, recognizing, and being okay, being allowed to recognize your differences, being allowed to be okay with your differences, and not having the entire of society against you for doing that, I think is a great thing.
And if I could say something about the student reference, another area that this comes up is when we take trips for conferences. We put the boys in one cabin or in one hotel room, and we put the girls in another cabin, with the assumption that the reason we divide is because we have sexual activity going on. So now do we now have to divide up and say, well, lesbian women can room with lesbian women, heterosexual women can room with heterosexual women, bisexual, we're just going to put you in somewhere else. Transgenders are going to be over here, hetero men with hetero men, no homosexuals with the hetero men. I mean, this is, and the conversation has actually come up about rooming on one trip already that I know of for this campus, and it was like, where do we put the weirdos? I know, and are you comfortable with that? Are you okay? Well, okay, but yeah, and I mean, this was something that I had to directly make it. It was like, I don't care who I room with. I mean, it doesn't matter to me. So, are we going to now alter how we go on college trips? Are we going to say just room with whoever? You know, because this issue of sexuality is presumably why we divide. And if we have to consider all gender perspectives and orientation perspectives, then this is no longer a valid. It's not even valid anymore.
Well, if space is gender neutral, then we don't need men's and women's rooms. We can all go to the same restroom, right?
No.
I believe in
Why
gender.
not?
I'm going to go to your bathroom. I'm sorry. I will not use a man's bathroom. I've had to clean it before. No. Sorry. That's just, that's asking too much, yeah.
Building on what Amelia said, I mean, as a society, we sexualize our reproductive organs. We socialize people based on their reproductive organs before they even are conscious of what they're doing, maybe even before they're sentient with the technology that we have to figure out their anatomy. So if we didn't have that sexualization and that socialization, this whole grooming problem may not be an issue.
We're ready for these. I told you I got thrown in, it's just thrown in. It really, it's a catch-22, it really is, because when you start to add all of the differences and everything, it's hard. I can say that the trips that I've been on this campus, they have gone above and beyond to accommodate for gender identity as well as transfer students and non-traditional students. I mean, it's just amazing here. Of course, I've not been to another college campus, so I'm not biased. So I have to.
But should they? I mean, should it even be a question? When you fill out a form to
Personally, I don't think it should, but it's like you said, it's a catch-22. I don't think that I should have to pay more to go on trips because I'm a non-traditional student. Just because I'm a little older than the rest of y'all, I have to pay more.
Yeah,
But that's just the way it is.
Okay. Well, this next question contains some assumptions, but I think we can all understand and answer, and it'll be interesting to see what your answer is. How difficult is it being LGBT in a southern conservative area?
Well, it's difficult. I mean, in this area, you have people who will tell you that you are not what you say you are. Like me, for example, I've been told I am not transgender, but that I want to be gay, so I am going to get sexual reassignment surgery so that I can be gay and fulfill this societal role that apparently I have chosen, which is very perplexing to me. just a lot of miscommunications, assumptions. There's a lot of stereotypes and a lack of conversation about what is what, and so it's difficult.
I would say that this is something that I struggle with more than I thought I would. I am going into the Catholic Church, and being bisexual, it's not a subject that's easily talked about with your priest. And it's something that being in this region, you've got a lot of people who are telling you that, showing you things in the Bible, and I know I don't really know exactly what to say back to that, other than I don't know how else to be what I am. I don't know how to change it, and it's something that when I visited other areas, New York and stuff like that, it's not something that they see you holding hands with, your girlfriend, and they look at you, or they cling close to their husband. It's something that just seems to be a lot more of a taboo down here, and talking about it's hard, especially with people who you know is religious, whether it's family members or community groups, or here just on campus. Bringing it up in class, you don't know who's going to take offense or who's going to try and come at you with things opposing who you are, or what you believe. And I think that's something that needs to be looked closer at, and something that we should try being a little bit more accepting.
Yeah, I definitely think I agree. I grew up in a Southern Baptist environment, and being told every week, not necessarily every week, but when the subject did come up, obviously if we're going to talk about the South and Bible Belt and all of that, religion does play a big part in that. It was really difficult, especially when you hit the teenage years and all of the emotions start coming out. You really do struggle with whether or not you're right or wrong, or if there is a way to change it, if you can pray the gay away, or and even like when I came up to my dad, he just didn't understand it. There was just this mental block to not really give it a chance to sort of try to figure out. And maybe it is because I'm gay, but I've always tried to be very open to other ways of life and the way that people live that, and I will question it before judging that. I don't think it's necessarily right to, and that's the big problem. I think that there are a lot of misconceptions, stereotypes that if you know a gay person, they're going to hit on you just because you're a male, or if you meet a lesbian girl, she's going to hit on you because you're a woman. Those simple things like that you can clear the air if you only have conversations like this and actually ask questions and talk about it.
This next question is maybe a little more personal than some of the others, so feel free not to answer if you'd rather not. Do you have family problems due to your orientation or gender identity?
Well, I'm sure if you ask my daddy, he'll say it's not a problem because he likes to ignore things if they make him uncomfortable. But that in and of itself is a problem. And as we're riding to school this morning, and he keeps looking over at me, and I'm like, well, I'm thinking to myself, are you going to say it or not? Are you going to point out that I painted my nails last night, or are you just going to uncomfortably keep looking over at me instead of looking at the road? It causes family problems. In my family, they want to pretend it doesn't exist. They want to pretend it'll go away. They want to pretend it's a phase. The very first time I ever came out, I was in 4th grade, and I told my mom, and she said, she was laying on the couch, and she said to me, it's a phase, and she rolled over and went back to sleep. So that was 4th grade, and all these years later, it's a really long-running phase. I'm kind of waiting for it to end. It's getting stressful, but so yeah, family problems run a little rampant, unfortunately.
I kind of have that as well. I'm really close to my grandmother, and we have a great relationship. And I came out to her and told her in 6th grade that I had a girlfriend, that I liked girls and I liked boys. But she told me it was a phase, and that we would talk about it later. It's, you know, a couple years later, still going through that phase, and I brought it up to her a couple days ago with this coming up, and she said I'm holding on to it, and that I could just let it go, and it would go away. I wouldn't think about it anymore. So that's something that I don't know whether it's on her mind or what, but it does cause conflict. When I have a girlfriend, I want to bring my girlfriend home. I don't want to make her uncomfortable, and I don't want to sever our relationship, but I also really like my girlfriend, and I think it should be equal, to bring that word up again. I think I should be able to bring home whoever I'm in love with or whoever I'm in like with, and it's harder to do, especially with family that you care deeply about.
And as a parent, as the intermediary between different generations, I can say we have this lovely passive-aggressive thing going on Facebook, where there will be a scripture posted against all the evils of homosexuality, and where my daughter has not actively come out to my mother, and my mother has not actively said that she knows, and they're both waiting for me to do the job, and I'm like, nope, not gonna be there. But I catch it in the middle as the one in the middle. And I love the passive aggressive Facebook posts. Those are my favorite. You know, so even for those of us who are up here as quote normal people, and don't anybody laugh at that, anyway, quote normal people, but I am the generation in between two warring generations, and if anybody was ever boldly honest with the other, I think there'd be a big fight in a couple of years, somebody would hug and it would be okay, but there's just this level of contempt and complacency that's actually worse to me than if the actual thing had happened, but I don't feel that it's either my place nor my role to make it happen.
I think, you know, well, personally, I have an awesome mother. We actually went to the Elton John concert together this past Saturday. You know, I think around the holidays, maybe Emily was sort of hitting on this, but that's when there's an increase in anxiety, especially if you are in love with somebody or want to bring someone home. Like, I only see my uncle's family during the holidays, and they know, but we have never spoken about it. They've never, you know, when I was younger, they used to ask me if I had a girlfriend and all of that, but now they never ask me those questions, and it's just the silence, and they're complacent with not even asking about it, which is fine in a way, but it does affect families. And I think that's, you know, you always hear statistics about LGBT kids and suicide and stuff like that, especially around the holidays, and I think that's one of the reasons is you're not able to share the holidays as easily with the people you love.
I guess I've been blessed completely. Although I was raised in a very strict Southern Baptist home, where the thought of even anything close to that or anything else outside of a strict Southern Baptist home would be completely forbidden. My parents were very racist, very discriminatory. They were just, my grandparents the same way. I think my generation, my cousins and I have brought a level of diversity into our family that they never expected, and have over the years learned to embrace, as we are all just children. We are all part of a family. There are biracial marriages in my family. There are biracial children in my family. I'm not the only gay member in my family. Our family tree is very colorful, and I love it. And we're just all extremely happy. The only problem I have with any member of my family would be my sister. My sister loves me for who I am. She accepts me for who I am as long as I don't invite her pride. She's good with it.
All right, I think we have time for one more of these questions because the panel wanted to open it up to some questions from the public, from the audience as well. So let's do one more of these and then we'll open it up to some questions from the audience. And so your final question from the anonymous batch. If someone tells me they are LGBT, can I tell other people?
Absolutely not. It's not right to out other people. It may seem like it's okay if they're out and okay with you, but they could still be stealth in their own decisions. So if they've come to you and if they've trusted you with that information, that does not necessarily mean you can go and tell anybody else, or that you should. And on an individual to individual basis, you can talk to them and ask them if they're okay with you telling other people. But as a general rule, in my opinion, outing other people without their explicit permission is not cool.
Yeah, and I think it definitely depends on the relationship, how well you know them, and asking. Like, I've never been upset with anybody who's ever asked me, is it okay to mention it or to say anything to anybody else? That's never, got me upset. I'm very open about it, so I'm fine with it. But a lot of other people are still coming out with themselves or family or friends. So I think, just asking is, the way to go.
I would have to say, I think that for now, that's probably the case. You need to take it one individual case at a time, but I am hoping that in the future, with generations to come, that it won't be an issue. If somebody says something to you, it'll be just as common as whether or not y'all had breakfast at the same restaurant, or who's going to sit next to you or next to you in your theater or whatever, that it won't be, oh my gosh, somebody told me something, I've got to go tell somebody.
Yeah. I think it depends, again, context is everything. There are times when it's absolutely appropriate for me to say, well, yes, but my daughter is gay, and she has no problem with that. She's not ashamed of it. There's nothing that she's trying to hide about it. So it's not as though I'm sharing a secret. And there have been times when derogatory comments have been made, or there have been the little whispers and things that you may hear in the hall or something like that, and you, as a parent, can say, well, you're talking about somebody that I love. And there are times I think that it is appropriate to say that someone in your life or someone that you're close to is gay, and that by saying offensive things about that person, you're literally hurting me, and I'm not going to stand by quietly and let you do it any more than I will stand by and let somebody make racist comments and not say something about that. That's kind of different than actually if somebody comes to you and says, hey, I think I'm gay, that you go into the girl's bathroom and go, do you know about so-and-so? She's gay. Wow. So I think, and again, this context makes all the difference in the world.
Okay, well, that concludes that portion of our panel. And now we're just going to open the floor to you and see what questions you have for the panel.
My question's for Jessica. I went to the same high school as Jessica. We didn't hang out in the same type of crowd. And I was wondering, if somebody didn't know you were transgender and made the mistake of calling you the wrong gender, how does that, do you feel offended, or what's the emotions of it?
Like, when I get misgendered, and it happens on a daily basis, I mean, it really depends. It's like you can tell who's being deliberately offensive and who really made an honest mistake. And the only thing we can do with honest mistakes is correct them and move on and try and get better with it. So it's not offensive in that case where it's an honest mistake, but if it's deliberate misgendering and they know that I'm transgender and they don't care, then that's extremely offensive.
So would you rather be approached as a female or a male?
A woman, a female.
this is just a really great panel. I'm glad you all were able to talk and invite me out. I was just curious, is the Equality Alliance working on any projects such as this as an educational thing? This is great, but are you all as a group working on any projects to try and change some of the policies that we talked about in the panel on your campus, or maybe trying to get a gender-neutral bathroom? I just wondered if there's any advocacy going on campus.
I would say not actively at this point, but it's definitely something that's on one of the burners. We've got about 20 of them right now, so it's a juggling act, and it's kind of a pick and choose your battles as they come. For me personally, I would like to do a lot of advocacy for myself on this campus, but I would more prefer to reach out to middle and high school students than to worry about myself. That's just me personally.
Yeah, the Floyd campus, the Equality Alliance is not necessarily new, but we have had a changeover in our active members recently. So we're really trying to build a presence right now, and information is, as Jessica said, that's something that sort of is on the front burner at this point, but hopefully next year there will be more advocacy work.
Okay, I would like to know what's the difference between transgender and transsexual?
I'm always afraid I'm gonna get this wrong, so I may have to Google it later to see if I got it right. But basically, transgender is someone who wants, most of the time, not all the time, but generally, as a rule, wants to have hormone therapy and/or sexual reassignment surgery. Whereas a transsexual is someone who may live as their preferred gender but not get the hormone therapy or the sexual reassignment surgery.
Question over here.
Yes.
Speaking on behalf of half the people I meet in real life and half the people I meet online and World of Warcraft Trade Chat, actually, I'm very, very, very open about what I am. I usually, while I'm shaking hands. What exactly, I know the answer, but just because it's such a common question, what exactly is genderqueer and gender fluid?
You are putting me on the spot. All right. Again, let me see if I get this right. I've been trying really hard. I believe the genderqueer and gender fluid are people who don't identify as either set standard societal gender roles, that they believe that they can move, that they do, not that they believe they can, but that they do move between what we understand as their societal gender roles in the way that they present themselves, and they often prefer gender neutral pronouns, they, their, them, as opposed to he or she. And so I believe that's gender fluid and gender queer.
Any other questions? Okay.
Mine's not really a question, it's just more of a statement. And I'm not going to, this is really pointed to and believe me, I'm old too, people, but to the three younger members of the panel. That's who are going through, being gay, being transgendered, being lesbian, bisexual, whatever. But this was my personal journey, and I hope this for you guys and for any other young people in this room. With me being an HIV positive gay male, I hope that you guys just come to a point in your life where you don't give a damn about acceptance from other people, and you live your life the way that you want to live it, and you're happy.
Well, I do have to say that, in response to that, I definitely agree. I think it's not about being gay, straight, bisexual, transgender. I think it's about being human. And I think it's, that should be our main focus. And, I have, as a member of the LGBT community, that's one of the, problems I have in my head all the time is, you know, we're fighting for LGBT rights, but really it's focused on human rights, because I don't wake up every day and go, oh, I'm gay, I'm gonna go do gay things. I wake up every day and I know that I'm a student and that I'm trying to better my life and I'm trying to better the lives of people around me, and that's my main focus. And if there happens to be a cute guy that comes along that I fall in love with, and that's great, but you know, just like everyone else, it's about building a better life for yourself. So
There's always something that's going to separate us and make us different. There will be something that will always make me different from you, and 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 everybody in this room. But I'm not going to walk up to you and define myself based on that difference, and that's partly why the name that we have is the Equality Alliance, because Dr. Blankenship at the beginning as our advisor kind of pointed that out. Why are we calling ourselves all these labels? What damn difference does it make? And I'm sorry for using a pejorative that upsets anyone, but what difference does it make? In other words, we're all of us in this together, and I don't walk up to anybody and introduce myself as, hi, I'm Amelia, and last night I had sex with so-and-so, and the day that we can, that's not funny, I'm sorry, but the day that we get even past that in our head, that's what this is about. We don't want to have to be here anymore.
And unfortunately, we are almost out of time, so I would like to take a minute to thank a couple of people again who are here. Dr. Harden from the Diversity Committee, he's the treasurer. I would also like to thank the Office of Student Life for letting us use this wonderful facility. I would like to thank the Equality Alliance, both on Cartersville and Floyd. Dr. Alan Nichols for moderating. And again, to all of our special guests, M. Elliott, Jamie, CW over here, for coming out and being amazing. And they have some materials that they've brought with them, some resources if you would like to talk with them afterwards and see what goodies they've brought. And I know I, for one, will be available for questions. I believe everyone on the panel will be available as well. If you can stick around and you want to ask any more questions. So again, thank you for being here, and I hope you've enjoyed yourself.